just to cue up how efficiently and fantastically this session is going to run, I just realised I left something in my prop box that I wanted. Or left it somewhere anyway. So we'll come back to that. Thank you, Janice. That's very kind words of introduction. I'm Deb Connor, and you're all here to find out how to have a practice bursting with patients, so that you're all completely exhausted and need to go and see another acupuncturist and herbalist for some treatment. So it'll work quite well, I'm sure. So Janice has given an introduction, but I thought because of what I'm going to talk about, it's useful if I tell you a little bit about me as well. As you can see from this photograph, I'm a climber and a mountaineer, so I'm used to going places and doing things that perhaps it's not the done thing for young ladies, or maybe not so young ladies, to do. I have done some amazing mountaineering, and I use the same thing, kind of that same determination in my business practice. My background is, before training as an acupuncturist, I was a nurse, so I'm a registered general nurse and a registered sick children's nurse as well. I worked in the NHS for more years than perhaps I care to mention. And I'm currently also teach at Northern College of Acupuncture, and have become friendly with the Acupuncture Academy ladies, and have been welcomed into the fold there, so that's really nice. So, where shall we start? Shall we start in the beginning? In the beginning, when I set up as an acupuncturist, I had no acupuncture practice. I was just setting up. I had no experience of running a business. It's sounding like a fantastic cocktail for disaster so far, isn't it? I had no acupuncture patients, and certainly I had no income from acupuncture. Nothing, zero, zilch. Had huge debts from all the books I bought. It's a terrible book fetish. But certainly had no acupuncture income whatsoever. But what I did have was really important. What I had was a vision. I had a vision of what I wanted my practice to be, what I wanted to be as a practitioner. And this picture is very kindly David Foster, a Warrington-based artist, has let me use this picture in this presentation. And not only is it an eye, symbolising this idea of having a vision and how important that is, but David works with a blank piece of wood and a handful of nails. So 16,000 nails have been hammered into this piece of wood to produce this fantastic picture of this eye. How does he do that? Well, he has a vision of what the picture's going to look like when he's finished. So it starts with this bit of wood, and he's got a vision, and you can picture that. I really can't stress to you enough how important having some sort of vision of what you want your practice to be. That's so important. Now, I haven't uploaded a handout before the session because it kind of spoils what's coming next, really. But I am going to put one up there, and it's going to be in the form of, part of it's going to be a little worksheet that you work through. And one of the questions on that is going to be, what is your vision for your practice? The devil is in the detail, to the smallest detail. I mean, I was just about to point at somebody and say, how much do you want to earn? But, being British, we don't like to talk about that. Oh, I do it for the love. But we do have to live. So I had an idea in my head of how much I wanted to earn as an acupuncturist. And achieved that within 3 years, excuse me. Can edit that coughing out, can we? I should see an acupuncturist. So I was very clear about how much I wanted to earn, how many patients I wanted to see, the environment that I wanted to practice in. So because I knew where I wanted to go, then, like getting into the car, you can go, well, I'm going to drive to Egham and go to a conference. I know exactly where I'm going to go. But get in the car and think, I'll go to a conference. I don't know what on or where it is. How am I ever going to get there? So you really must sit down, take some time, and think about, what do you want? What do you want? So that was my vision. What was the reality? Well, the reality was I was completely and utterly exhausted after my 3 years study. I was a complete girly swat, hence winning this dissertation prize. So I was completely exhausted. Perhaps didn't really realise that at the time. And so I would advocate things like, talking to your peers, mentoring, supervision, that kind of thing, can identify, is this the right time for you to do something? And how many people in the room haven't qualified yet, are still students? So quite a few of you. So when, do you want to look like this? Possibly not. So, it is really important to think about those things. Well, once I qualified, I then went to study in China, immediately came back, there was no break, it was all a big whoosh of enthusiasm and excitement, and I was buoyed up by that, but of course then when I started my practice, and I built it really quickly, then this was greeting me in the mirror every morning. This is actually me in Kyrgyzstan on a mountaineering expedition. We'd just done a load carry up to the next camp and back down. And that's why I look like that. Julie, you're not coming on the next trip, I don't. So these are things that you need to think about. And something that I do think is really, really important in business is that it's good to know people. If I just kind of, set up my practice and I just sit there, who the hell is going to come and see me? Nobody, if I don't know anyone. And it's actually through knowing people that I ended up practicing where I do currently. And I practice in a dental surgery at the moment. I rent a room that was a clinical room, but was then the hygienists that worked there left, and it had become just a stock room. So this was a room in the dental surgery that they weren't making any money out of. So, I'll rent that room. And that's worked out really well. I think one of the really good things is that there's some kind of legitimacy about being in a sort of kind of mainstream Western type area. I'm not saying that this is the only way to do it, I'm saying this is a way of doing it. Because I know some people, practice, Sandra, I know you practice above a hairdresser's, which is great because you get free haircuts, don't you? So that kind of knowing people and negotiating is a really good idea. Now, to make my granny really proud, I got this lovely brass effect plaque made, and I thought this was a kind of stupid, naive mistake. I thought, I'll put this plaque up, there will be hordes of people. I gave the receptionist a pile of leaflets and information, so they can call me, because all these people, they'll see this plaque and they'll come in, they'll want acupuncture. Right, oops. Sorry, I need to go to that one now. Oh. Anyway, so I don't get completely lost. Did anybody notice how small that plaque was compared to the size of the building? And you have to go right up to it and see it. Now that's great if you're going there, go, oh yes, I'm in the right place, press the buzzer. And you might momentarily think, well, that looks quite silver. That's because I bought the brass effect and the cleaner hadn't realised and brassoed it and it brought all the effect on. Because I think rule one for me in terms of business and in life is don't spend any money. And rule two is, no really, don't spend any money. Rule three is if you need to spend some money, then make sure you get a good deal. And one of the things I did in terms of renting a room in the dental surgery was I acknowledged to myself that even I wouldn't be able to instantly have 35 people a week coming to my practice. But I've got to pay for this somehow. Maybe I can negotiate some sort of percentage deal. So I'll only pay a percentage of my takings when a patient comes in. So, smiles and nods, it works very well, doesn't it? Yeah, if a patient doesn't turn up, I don't pay anything. If I go on holiday, I don't pay anything. If I was the other side of that and renting the room, I'd be saying, you must be kidding, here's a flat rate. And you pay it in advance. So if you can negotiate those sort of deals, I mean, obviously now that I'm really busy, I pay what seems like a big chunk, but it's still manageable because it's always a percentage. For the mathematicians amongst us, I thought, let's look at the percentage increase. Everybody said, how quick did you do it? How soon? Check this out. Week 1. Here we go. Week 2. Now, if anybody saw Mike Cummings' lecture yesterday with kind of sort of messing around with statistics and research and how you can fudge the figures and make it look quite impressive. So week 1, I saw 1 patient, And week 2, I saw 2 patients. So that was a massive increase in terms of business. So if you go into kind of like the Chamber of Commerce and things like this and say, oh yes, I'd like one of your business advisors for free, and what free money have you got? Well, how are you doing? Well, my business turnover increased 100% in only my first week of trading. Oh, wow. And often they don't bother to look any further. They go, oh, yes, let's bring you into the fold, and then we can say what a great business advice centre we are, because we've helped you. It didn't continue like that. I'd be looking worse than the photograph, wouldn't I? Yeah, I'll come back to how I got those first patients later. But here's a photo I took of the Great Wall of China. Because I often like a different perspective on things. And this is to represent obstacles. Now, obstacles that you will come up against, they're just there to make you realise how much you want something. So, the obstacle of, well, the environmental health said you've got to jump through several flaming hoops before you can practice in a particular location. Do you want to practice there? Is it an obstacle that you want to get over, or do you want to go work somewhere else? So embrace the obstacles, love the obstacles. They're there to say how much you want it. Now, the more observant I am a member of the WI, hence my knitting needle. The more observant of you will have noticed that there is a patch of blue sky up here. And I don't know if there's any other climbers in the room, but you can see there's quite a few footholds and some handholds. You can easily climb over that obstacle. So there's always a way. Well, some people say, oh, knock it down. Great, knock it down, go around it, climb over it. There will be a way. There's always choice and there's always a way. You might not know instantly what it is, but it's there. I mentioned in business, it's really good to know people. Any idea what's better than knowing people?
Talking to them.
Who said that? Talking to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. It would be helpful, wouldn't it?
Yeah, really.
I said it's good to know even more people, even if they're tossers. You can see actually jugglers are good people to know. So find your local juggling club. They spend all day like this. They've got back and neck and shoulder problems, so they are quite a good set of people to know. But I did join various networking things, and even though I say so myself, I am good at networking. And I could do a whole session on networking. And certainly, we could fix that up if anybody's particularly interested, because I think it's really the key to doing local business with local people. So it's really good to know as many people as you possibly can. Right, I moved into the town where I practice 8 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago. So I was there 3 years while I was studying, and then set up practice there. This is a town, it's a provincial northern town, where the estate agent was really shocked that neither myself nor my husband were from the area, and we were buying a house there. So maybe that kind of gives you the idea of sort of this concept of perhaps being a little bit of an outsider. Okay, so I'm a little bit of an outsider, and I'm going to set up a business doing something that some people might consider a little bit out of the mainstream. But I've managed it and I've done it. There was some kind of language barrier to begin with, so do get used to the local sayings. I just spotted someone who's local. You probably already knew what a yedwatch was. A patient came and said, oh, terrible yedwatch. I thought, well, I'll just ask that again. Said, oh, terrible yedwatch. Does anybody know what that is? Good, I wasn't alone. That's a headache if you're from Wigan. So if you decide to practice in Wigan, then that's useful to know. And what I would say is to get to know people locally, because I don't think anybody's going to start exporting their acupuncture skills to other countries. You're going to go, if you're going to do that, you're going to go live there, aren't you? So you need to get to know people locally. And loads of people say to me, oh, it's all right for you, Deb. You're not really there. And you'll just go and talk to anybody. So I would say, if that bothers you, well, what doesn't bother you? Would you talk to a patient? Would you talk one-to-one to a patient? So, oh, well, yeah, of course I'd talk to a patient. Okay. Well, what if a patient came with a relative? Yeah, that's fine. I talk to the patient and a relative. So you're talking to two people. right, so if you just do that 5 times, then you can talk to 10 people. And let me just tell you the maths is right there. So it's just, you know, these guys who run sort of 26 marathons on a row say, oh no, I just run 1 mile, and then another mile, and another mile. So whatever you're comfortable with doing, do that first, and then just expand it a bit. So as a climber, I moved into the area, what did I do? I met other climbers. So I went to a climbing wall, and you can talk about climbing. So then, you know, you've got some kind of credibility. So whatever you do, start off in the circles that you're comfortable with, and then move out from those. Guys, I don't know what the equivalent of the WI is, but ladies, join the WI, it's great for business. And you can have things like knitting needles. I have a crochet hook in my bag. I can't use them, but I have them. All the gear, no idea. Yeah, so I said definitely get to know people with a common interest first. And as part of that, one of my ridiculous blunders was when I was a student, I thought, oh, I know, I guess the local Qigong class, because there, you know, I'll meet all these people who want acupuncture treatment. Well, everybody either was an acupuncturist or was related to an acupuncturist. So I met lots of nice people, but maybe from a business point of view, that didn't perhaps work out the same. So referrals. Now, whichever way you look at it, referrals are a good idea, definitely. How are you going to get them? Well, I think a really good way to get referrals from other practitioners is to refer patients to them. It builds trust. You know, patients think it's quite good if you say, oh, I think you need to see someone. Oh, you know, that Deb Connor, she was very good. She knew I needed to see a nutritionist, or, you know, wherever you might be sending people. And I think there is some level of concern, people wanting to hold on to patients, but, you know, I need my £2.60 a week that I'm earning from this person when they come to see me for treatment, or, you know, however much you're making. I think our margins are slightly better than £2.60. I don't know where that figure goes. £5.50, the cost of a pint in a bar here. So do refer when you think that the patient needs it. Now, I've really worked quite hard with this, and I think you do have to refer more patients out first before you start getting them back. But then it does happen. So if you feel, and there's that honesty thing, isn't there, of thinking, well, alongside this acupuncture treatment, I really think you need this as well. And some patients will say, well, I don't want to, I just want to see you, Miriam, because you're lovely and I like your acupuncture and I feel better. And that's fine, you've given them that option, haven't you? And they'll remember that. And some patients will say, oh yeah, thanks very much for that. I mean, there's a guy who he came for a problem that is really could have been quite easily and quickly fixed with physio. You know, I said, well, I'll do some acupuncture, but have you thought of having some physio? Well, you know, I've heard you're quite good, so I'd like to try some acupuncture. So we did some acupuncture, and sure enough, he did feel better. But I said, I think to stop this reoccurring, you probably need to go and have some physio that strengthen that particular area. So, you know, he went off to have physio, the local physio I've made contact with, and he sent me loads of patients. And I think it's because I think there's that kind of Western thing, isn't there? You go to the GP and they refer you to somebody. So I think there's that kind of mindset. So there's loads of obvious people who you might refer to: herbalists, massage therapists, chiro, osteo, physios, that kind of thing. But what about other referrals? I've made myself a nice kind of little referral set that includes a local choir. So that might sound quite strange, but if we've got patients who really need to open the chest, then that can be really good to get them kind of stood up and singing. I found there's a couple of choirs locally, but I found one with a choir mistress who is very much community focused, and she wants people to come and do whatever singing is to them. You don't have to be able to pitch or have much of a range, you can just go. Because if patients are really isolated and all they do is come and see an acupuncturist, then where's the other support for their health? So I think them becoming part of some sort of community or community group, particularly for patients if they're isolated, that to refer to some sort of community group, a choir, the WSO, or have you thought of joining the WI, or somebody who I was treating who, he's got to that age now where all his friends have died. But he's always talking about the history of the area, which is fascinating to me because I'm not from there. And so I sort of said, I found out about the local historic society. Is this something you'd be interested in? Absolutely, really involved in it. His improvement from treatment really accelerated. And of course, what does he then do? But tell all the historic society that Deb Connor, she's great. So I think, refer out, because you will get it back, but you might just have to ride the initial, I feel like I'm sending more people away than are coming, because it'll come back. You do need to know your market. And for me, as somebody moving into somewhere that I didn't really know, then that was really important. For those of you that know the area, I'm living in St Helens, and so knowing the difference between rugby union and rugby league, I found out to my peril is very important. So you do have to know the mindset of the local population. And I run a general practice, so could say, oh crumbs, well my market is everybody. Everybody could have acupuncture. Crikey, how am I going to deal with that? And when I would go to networking meetings, in the early days, I was sort of trying to, in my kind of little 60-second pitch, and you can do this, and you can do this. It was like, God, that just sounds like I'm on speed or something. And also, what kept coming up was people who are a bit sceptical would say, acupuncture is supposed to treat a lot of things. Okay, so I thought, I'm going to have to think of some response for this, because I kept hearing it. And so what I came up with was, tablets treat lots of things. And to which people do go, oh, okay. And so if you go into a pharmacy, there's shelves and shelves of tablets, and one might be a diuretic, and one might be for headaches. I suggest you don't use a tablet for headaches and you have acupuncture because it is backed by nice. However, so it's understanding what the mindset of people is, and I think as practitioners, we become kind of completely encased in our world and the language of that world. And we forget that, before we were acupuncturists and somebody talked about kind of, stagnation or chi or something, we'd think, nutter! So you do have to think, hang on a minute, from the other side of this, what does that sound like? And what I kind of decided on, because I regularly would go to networking groups, is that a focus on something in particular. So I would say, okay, well, all you lovely people here at the networking meeting, acupuncture is good to treat many conditions. I'm just focusing on headaches today. So, if you know anybody with headaches, or you've got any employees or customers or whatever who are complaining of headaches, then send them along to me. And then the next time, I choose something else. So you're all thinking, oh, come on, what works? What works? Passion, enthusiasm, that works. I remember being at a networking meeting once. This woman stood up and said, I'm a life coach. Love it. And I knew that everybody in the room was thinking, no, you don't. You hate it. What are you doing? So passion and enthusiasm. And that doesn't have to be all Larry like I am. That's just that's just what we do. It comes from the heart, and people will see that. Having a website, if anybody wants to look at my website, feel free. It's rubbish. The reason I haven't upgraded it, I did it myself on the cheap, didn't want to spend any money. But the reason I haven't upgraded it is I haven't had time because I've been treating patients. So I think, well, I don't need to do anything with it then once I've got time. Let patients market for you. One of the things that I find really useful is to suggest to patients that they might tell other people. But you don't really want to go, oh, now I've treated you, go and tell everybody. Oh, I'm great, because that's rude, isn't it? So what I would say at the end of a first consultation, I give people like my card and my leaflet. I would say, if you tell anyone you've had acupuncture, they'll expect that you're an immediate expert. Well, Phil's an acupuncturist, so of course he is, but, to the patient. And they'll ask you, or they'll start telling you all their ailments and ask you if acupuncture can help. So give them my leaflet or tell them to give me a call, then I'll be happy to help. So that puts the idea in the patient's head of that they might tell somebody that they had acupuncture, and then that puts your leaflet and their card right in their handbag or their pocket or whatever. Networking definitely works. And I would say, getting involved in stuff really works as well. Even the next slide. And this can be anything from, joining the WR and being able to present lovely baked goods, which is important in life, I think. Or, join if there's a sport you like, join a local club or team if you enjoy, the historic society, the gardening club. There's loads of stuff you can join, and I think it's probably particularly important if you're new to an area where you're setting up practice, or if you live somewhere else and practice in another town, then you need to be joining stuff in that town. And then you can get to know people, and it's that knowing people that really works. And by getting involved, you can grow your comfort zone. So, initially I might have started off, having a chat with a few people about how to grow a business. And that kind of getting the information out there and sort of putting your chocolate muffins on show, so to speak. Oh gosh, perhaps we should edit that is really important. And if you do that within your comfort zone first, and how many people are in a room here? So when you leave here, everybody go up to somebody that they've never met before and introduce themselves. And one thing I would say about networking is, you do have to look interested and genuine. You might be there thinking in your mind, I can only pay my mortgage next month if I get X number of patients through my door. But that's obviously not what you want to portray, is it? So when I met somebody at a networking meeting, can I borrow you?
Yeah.
Thanks. Sat at the front. I would go up and say, hi, I'm Deb Connor, it's nice to meet you. So I'm going to look right into her eyes, and I'm going to think about what colour her eyes are, because that makes me really concentrate on it, and then it makes you really be looking in your eyes. Thanks, I won't make it. Also, networking is a real passion of mine, but I'll be getting the old time out, won't I, if I go on and on about it. But that's a really simple thing. You can all do that now, instantly as you leave. The other thing is, when you meet somebody and they give you your business card, there is nothing ruder than going, thanks, and putting it in your pocket or your bag. That says, I'm not really interested in you. Let me tell you about my business. But if you're interested in their business, then I promise you they will be interested in yours. So when somebody hands me a business card, what I'll do is I'll look down at it, and then I'll look back at them and make some comment about it. So, that's a really nice picture on your business card. So do you know that Anna does have really nice pictures on her business card.
Chocolate muffin. Sorry, Jim, let me bring you a chocolate muffin.
Yes. You're only round the corner from me. Yes, I'll call in with my muffins. So, I started off thinking, right, I want to see 30 patients a week, and I want to have an acupuncture income that equals my previous job. And that's what I did. I think the problem was that 30 patients a week became 35 patients a week, and so of all the stuff that you do to grow your business, kind of, it just keeps on growing. And, the kind of whole mentoring and supervision thing, I think, is really useful at that point, because you're kind of on this, I've got to do it, and then kind of how do you know sort of when to pull back. So in terms of the vision for your clinics, how many patients do you want to see? Some people say, I don't know. Well, how are you going to know when you're seeing that many, or how are you going to know how many to attract you to your clinic? And one of the things that I did was say I wanted to be a full-time acupuncturist. So Monday to Friday, 40 hours a week from day one. That's what I did. And then I worked my other nursing job at the weekends, and do 2 12.5-hour shifts. So if you want to work 1 day a week as an acupuncturist, then that day, if you've no patients at the moment, that 1 day a week, you spend that promoting your business. and then do whatever else it is you do at other times. Because if you think, well, I haven't got any patience, so this week I'll spend that one day, doing the ironing or going shopping, then you'll always have no patience because you haven't gone out there and said, oh, here I am. Here's my chocolate muffin. So I've got phases of my vision. So I have a big picture of what I eventually wanted. And one thing that I wanted was I wanted my own clinic, and I wanted to practice somewhere that I could live as well. Now, I live on what's known as a chav estate, and if a patient was arriving to where I currently live for treatment on a sunny day, they'd be greeted by the next door neighbour in the front garden on a sofa, shirt off, can of Stella, 11 o'clock in the morning. It's not really the kind of professional image that you might wish to portray. So I always had this idea in my head that I would buy somewhere. So I bought a commercial property, and in practice 5 years, I've bought a commercial property with my acupuncture income that's just down the road from where I practice now. There's already been quite a lot of renovation work gone on. So it's 3-storey, and downstairs will be my clinic, and then the top 2 floors will be where I'll live. I'll sell the house that I'm in, and I'll be, as an acupuncturist, on an acupuncture income, I'll be mortgage free. So it is possible. I've done it, or I'm about to do it. Now, just a word about positivity. I describe this as almost done and just needing a few tweaks. It needs sort of electrics and plasterboarding and plastering and plumbing and goodness knows what. But it's doable, and it's all just tweaks. So I do think anything is possible, but you have to be able to see it. You have to know where you're going for that. So I have got just kind of a couple of final thoughts, which will take probably about 4 minutes, 5 minutes when we get to the 5 minutes.
You've got another half an hour.
Have I?
No,
wow. Oh, this is going to go great. Let's get in there. How long have we got left?
How long do you want?
Well, I wanted to take some questions and then have a little 4-minute ending.
It finishes at 10 past.
Oh,
up
10
to 5 past.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So we've got 12 minutes of questions.
We can do some speed dating in that time.
Easily. What do people want to ask, or do you want me to talk about something in specific?
How do you get on with people at network meetings that you've got no interest in? Who's a business that you cannot possibly consider recommending, for example?
Right, okay.
Do you buy into what they're selling?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Sorry, what's your name?
Rupesh.
Rupert, thanks for that question,
Rupesh.
Rupesh, sorry, my
That's all right.
apologies. It's a really good question, because there are products out there that perhaps I think are rubbish. There's some excellent products out there, and I completely understand what you're saying. I don't go to any of these networking meetings that demand that you bring 5 referrals to.
So you've got BNI.
I don't do BNI actually, and the reason that I don't do it is because one, I haven't had time. I did think it was something I might consider. BNI is a networking group where you pay. In my area, it's about £600 or £700 a year, which rule 1, rule 2, don't spend any money. That was rule. I'm not going to start there. And what you have to do is actually bring referrals to other members of the group, and they in turn bring them to you. And I just felt that, like you say, maybe there was types of businesses that I would think weren't necessarily good for people. So, I'm really going to say, I've not come across any kind of cigarette manufacturers say these networking things, but I'm not going to go, oh yeah, I've got 5 new smokers this week. Oh, isn't that great? This would be totally against everything. But I think any business has a potential from my point of view, because they have employers or somebody's running that business. So personally, I don't involve myself on this demand of, you provide so many referrals, because I think the difficulty is once you're so busy doing acupuncture that you don't have so much time to kind of get out there and speak to other people. And I certainly would absolutely never, other than, you know, something that might benefit the patient's health, like, oh, have you thought of, you know, going along to the WI or something like that, where there's a support network. I certainly would never sell or promote anything to a patient, because that just goes way beyond the boundary that I'd never ever be prepared to cross. So that's why I don't engage in that kind of networking.
So how do you feel when you're in a network meeting
Yeah.
and people are busy referring people across, and
as though I'm not giving anything.
You're not
is
giving
that what you
anything.
mean? Right, okay. So what I would do is, I would say, connecting people together, because I've got to know lots of people. So say if you were a farmer who, you know, cows were producing loads of milk, and you had no buckets to put the milk in and carry them to market, which is clearly what farmers and St Helens do. And I have met a bucket salesman at another networking meeting. I'll put the two of you together. So that's more the kind of the thing, and that gets you very well liked and very well known in the area. And also becoming kind of that sort of go-to person almost. Oh, Deb Connor almost. They get all sorts of kind of mad email questions, and I can't always answer them, but you know, I can say, oh, do you know, I know somebody who would know. And by the way, she wants some acupuncture, not necessarily kind of that blatant. And for that's just made me think of something else actually. For people who feel that they're not really confident to kind of get out there and promote their own business, well, team up with someone else. And, you know, if you're two acupuncturists, then, you know, if in the same time, I mean, do you really want to treat 50,000 people a week? Or, you know, even if you wanted to, you couldn't physically do that. So, you know, you can team up, even if you work in different locations, you can team up. And, you know, I can sort of go around saying, oh, Jill's great, should have some acupuncture treatment. It might be easier for me to do that than say, I'm great. Although I find it quite easy to say that, so it's quite useful from a business point of view. But you can kind of work together. Or, for example, there's a massage therapist that I've become very friendly with locally. She sends me loads of people. And so, you know, I recommend people, you know, that a massage might be a nice thing.
I was only going to say that, but that kind of reinforces what you were saying about speaking to people that you're not necessarily interested in, because you may have met the bucket man. I thought that's the dullest thing I've ever
Yes,
met.
yeah.
If you're a collector of information, that's when you start to see that person fit with that person, and it gives you a reason to be interested in what might be suited.
Absolutely, yeah. So you end up with a word your business card. So do always write something on the back. You know, that's useful when you comment on somebody's business card, or oh, you're around the corner from me. So just make yourself some notes on the back. You know, are they looking for something in particular? Or, you know, if I'll write if they've got a particular interest, you know, their dog wasn't well. So next time I see them, might be 2 months later, I'll say, oh, how's your dog? Go, wow, God, go and see her for treatment. She's, you know, I've just gone like that before. It's like you're allowed to use tricks.
Just quickly, with regards to the referrals.
Yeah.
So when you were in a town, obviously, as you were for the first time, so you
Yeah.
didn't have a kind of network of chiros and osteos and everybody that you knew. So what did you do? Did you literally just turn up on their doorstep and say hello, or did you start emailing people and introduce yourself? Or
Yeah, I think it's really helpful to do a face-to-face,
Yeah.
definitely. If it's something that you can go and book a treatment for, then that's really helpful, because, you know, if I'm sending somebody to a massage therapist, I want them to go somewhere that's nice. So, you know, go and have a massage or whatever. So, yeah, I kind of looked at who had Googled who was in the area, went and had a nosy at the outside of their business, what did it look like? Because remember, I'm saying I'm going to work 40 hours a week as an acupuncturist. Week one, I did an hour. It took 39 hours to wander around town going, oh, look, here's somebody, and get to know them. And then would say, oh, you know, find out something. Even if I thought I already knew, I would find something out about, you know, ask them about what they treat or something like that. And then, you know, I think if people have met you face to face, they're much happier that you're not about to kind of nick all their business. that you're about giving them something.
How much effort did you put it right at the beginning into sort of your outside image, like the website, your business card, the name, to find a name? Because I think when you go somewhere, a network, I mean, you want to hand something over. So
Sure.
did you have, for example, your name already chosen?
Yeah, I
and
did.
Everything set up? And
I did have my business name chosen, and I had, you know, the cheapest business cards from Vistaprint. Other business card manufacturers are available. But yeah, I did do it. Everybody says, "Oh, you've got really high quality paper," but I mean, I don't know. It's just being in the north, but I completely did it on the tube. I really did, and it's worked.
And you had the website as well already?
Yeah, and I set that up myself. Used FastHost. Other hosting companies are available, and there was like a template, and I just uploaded stuff to that. Have a look at it. It's rubbish. But what I do is look at other people's websites. And one thing that I've seen frequently on acupuncturist websites is them saying, "Oh, have you been let down by the NHS?" Mm-hmm. Now, as a nurse, that really winds me up because I used to work really hard, working harder as an acupuncturist, potentially, probably the same level of hardness. But I treat loads of stuff from the NHS, so by putting it, you fed up with the NHS, you've swiped out a massive potential customer base or patient base, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So think really carefully about that. Might be what you think, but do you want to say that for anyone to say?
Just following on from that, obviously you're in a slightly different position with your background with the NHS, but what do you do with regards to GPs in your area, for example? Do you have any kind of...
Yeah, I do send GP letters. So when a new patient comes, I'll say to them, usually I like to send a letter to a GP. I used to say, when I've treated somebody with a course of acupuncture, usually I like to send a letter to GP. Are you happy for me to do that, or would you prefer I didn't? And generally people will say, no, that's fine. And then, I can upload a sort of vague template of that with the, with the worksheet. If people, would that be useful? Because I think it's easier to write that when you've been in the system, isn't it? Yeah. I know Sarah Budd's uploaded one for the discussion tomorrow, and it's kind of along a similar line. I would say, if you want any info, get in touch.
Do you send a letter to each patient's doctor then?
If they say that that's okay, I would do, yeah, because then repeatedly your name is coming up in front of people.
Do you get referrals from doctors?
I do, yeah, I do.
So do you send the letter after the first treatment or after?
Yeah,
the
saying,
second treatment?
this person is presented with this, we're going to do a course of acupuncture, I would expect, blah, 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 the outcome to be. If they want any further information, to contact me, because otherwise if you're going to then send another letter and what have you, you just get too bogged down by the time you're seeing 35 people a week. It's a lot. Yeah.
How did you determine your pricing structure?
I looked at how much other people were charging in the area, because obviously that's relevant. I don't want to massively undercharge and then people go, oh, that's not as good, so it doesn't cost as much. I also looked at how quickly I thought I could realistically build the business, and how much, obviously I have this percentage deal, so that was really useful, but worked out what was my break even in terms of numbers of patients if I set the price at this amount, and what would it be if I set the price at this amount. And I think I undercharged to begin with, and I was really hesitant about putting up prices. But, it's sort of kind of then in kind of a supervision system, somebody says, well, why don't you want to put your price up? And it boils down to thinking, I don't really think I'm worth it. Then you go, do you know what? I am.
So from that, do you work out your profit margins for treatment, or did you go to that level of detail?
Initially, I wanted to know how many patients do I need to see to not be in debt from buying needles. And we are in a fortunate position that it's not a massive, we don't hold huge amounts of stock, so it's not a massive outlay. Although I appreciate there might be if people are signing leases for clinics and things like that. So I initially worked out what is like, you're not in debt. Okay, then in terms of a week, what do I need to do in a week? Because that just seemed to sit better with me, like what happens in a week. And then from that, once I kind of was comfortable that, that's achievable, I have since then gone in to look at, what profit margin is there if I, estimating how many numbers of needles I think I'll use. Obviously, there's couch rollers, things like that. If I break that down and I'm including like my phone bill and all this kind of thing, what profit is it per patient? But initially, I just looked at, if I set the price at this, how many do I need to see in a week to not have any debt? So how many would I need to see in a week to have a wage that I could live on?
So you took your setup costs basically, and then said, okay, I'm going to see 7 patients to break even.
Yeah.
Should we cover those setup costs, whatever they need to be?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I went out there looking for free money. So I got £1,000 given to me because I was bothered to ask for it. And I know people say, oh, but there isn't any free money anymore. You will still find some chambers of commerce that are offering, because a lot of people have been made redundant in certain kind of redundancy hotspots. They've allocated sections of money to give new business start-up. And you don't have to have previously be made redundant. So just go and ask everybody if they've got any money that they want to give you.
Can I ask you another question? You talked about you when you first set up, you were in the dentist surgery.
Yeah.
Have you got an opinion that that's perhaps easier for you to do because you're in the medical profession to start with, and then they perhaps warmed to you?
I think that was easier to do because I knew people. Because I ended up with that room because somebody I knew or got to know in that area was married to the dentist.
Right.
So it wasn't anything to do with being a nurse.
Don't start in the medical profession and then come into acupuncture.
You can still do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just interesting.
You have to see it though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else? What percentage do you pay?
Ooh. Are you going to ask me how much I earn next?
No, I'm not. No. I don't even know how much you charge.
And you can look that up, yeah. It's public record, isn't it? I've negotiated a good percentage, so I only pay 20% of my takings. So I know it.
Oh yeah, I pay 25%. And in answer to your point, I saw a premises that was a beauty parlour. There were 8 other beauticians in the town, so I knew they had extra capacity. I walked in, I was shaking when I asked the woman, would you be interested in having an acupuncturist? Yeah. And she was just delighted.
Yeah.
Just embraced me beautifully. A cup of tea, sit down, don't worry. I gave her this big presentation. I didn't need to, but it worked. It was, and so I've got.
And that is absolutely the key thing. You've got to go and ask. So I'm going to come and ask you something, and I'd like you to say a nice, clear no. Sandra, could I have something?
No.
Was that so bad? I didn't die. We're still friends. It was all okay. So you might get knockbacks, but do you know they're the obstacles that just make you realise how much you want it. So somebody saying no, I lived through it. We got through it together. It was
actually somebody saying no can sometimes be the best thing that can happen to you.
There you
because
go,
the
you
next
see.
person you go to has something better.
Exactly. And I realise we're probably out of time now, so I just want to leave you with just 2 final thoughts.
Can you say something about accountants?
I do my own accounts. I don't have any business background whatsoever, but kind of I have lived my life and managed to kind of, earn a wage and realise that, I can spend this much on climbing gear, this much on, beans on toast, and, this much on red wine or whatever, and rent. So I just kind of use the same budgeting principles that I had in my life.
Can I just ask quickly about, you've got a name for your business. Do you think it's better to have a business name or just promote yourself under your own name?
That's a really good question. I think if your vision is that you will have other people working alongside with that business name, then it's probably a good idea to have a business name from the start. If your vision is that you'll always work, Deb Connor on her own, then maybe it doesn't matter. I think if you're doing business-to-business networking, having a business name probably just tweaks you up there a little bit and makes you kind of a bit more legitimate. I don't even really think it particularly matters what your business name is. I mean, I went to chat with somebody at a networking meeting because the name of her business was Flying Squirrel. I want to know what Flying Squirrel do. Wow, they train squirrels to fly. It's a procurement company. But, you know, how cool.
Something I just can chip in about that is when I started, I was sort of bounding around different sort of names. Now, if you happen to call yourself Wigan Central Acupuncture, but then you decide to move to Leeds,
yes,
you've got that kind of
exactly. You can't take the reputation with you, can you? Or if you call it the the Hall Street Clinic, then if you move from Hall Street, what does it become then? And that's a really good point.
Yeah, so geographic names are worth sort of.
Yeah, you might want to think about that. Absolutely, yeah.
Can I just ask, when did you actually start the process of setting up the business? Did you start it before you qualified?
Oh God, I was writing my dissertation. I'd thought about where I already had a vision, because in those moments where you should be writing up and you think, I'll just have a bit of toast or a chocolate muffin, and I would gaze into the distance and have this idea. So I suppose I was having ideas, but finished, went to China, came back, and then just went and kind of vomited my idea all over the town. Which seems to work, not literally, obviously. So I think we're definitely out of time now. And just a couple of things that I want to leave you with is this is a photo of me on the summit of a very remote peak in Kyrgyzstan. It's picture Payed, and I'm one of only a handful of female British mountaineers that have stood on that spot. How did I manage to do that? Because I wanted to go and do it. And I had a vision of me standing there. I could probably make a pretty safe guess that I'm the only mountaineer to have taken a copy of the acupuncture. You'll notice that it's actually only the cover. Cutting the labels out of your clothes and the handle of your toothbrush to keep the weight down. You're not going to take all of it. So, it's just a cover. So if you imagine it and you visualise it, believe me, you can do it. You can. And the other thought that I'll leave you with is, I have had my muffins on display. And, so it's getting to lunchtime. And some of you might be thinking, oh, look, it's probably at the back you maybe can't see. Shall I hold them up? You see, here's a lesson here. Oh, don't drop your muffins on the floor, Mrs. Brown. Nobody wants that one now, I'll just mix them up. So they've been, and for the people in the front row, they probably, look, I could just fancy something to eat. Oh, I could just go a chocolate muffin, and there it is on my nice little, you see that wasn't very expensive, that cake stand. You just don't spend any money. But can I ask you this, and you can go away and ponder this. Who wanted that one? Nobody, because you didn't know it was there. So you didn't know to say, but it's the poor sad thing, it was in a box, it was under the table. So, put yourself out there. Be the chocolate muffins on the cake stand in the middle of the room, because then people will want your muffins with your hand. Nobody wants the sad one on a paper plate that's in the box.
Rather the paper plate one than the one that's been on the floor.
You can have the one that's been on the floor. Okay, thank you very much for listening. I know we're out of time, but do email me, or I will upload stuff onto